Regan?
Good evening. I have our landscape architect here as well as our architect and our site engineer. I anticipate our architect providing testimony with respect to a bollard and planter plan that we will be presenting shortly. But I wanted to bring up our landscape architect again, Michael Zura, who has previously testified before this board, specifically with regard to the tree diagram plan, the tree inventory plan, dated February 15, 2019, submitted to the board on February 21st, 2019. Just to provide some very brief testimony with respect to the plans, and I understand that there were some questions that arose at the last meeting from the public, and he's prepared to respond to those questions.
Proceed.
Zura?
Mr. Zura, since your last appearance before the board, has your license been suspended or revoked?
No.
And you do understand that you're continuing under oath?
Yes, I do.
Please begin.
Mr. Zura, with regards to the tree diagram plan and the tree inventory plan, which were dated February 15, 2019, that were prepared under your supervision and submitted to the board on February 21st, 2019, those plans are consistent with the prior plans, landscape plans prepared by you and oversaw by you, as well as your prior testimony.
Yes, that's correct.
And those plans were submitted to comply with the tree protection and removal ordinance of the township?
Yes, that's correct as well.
That's all I wanted to do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Members of the, now, I'm going to caution everyone, including members of the board and members of the public. Cross-examination of the witness is strictly limited to the testimony he just gave. We are not reopening the entire record and going back to the beginning of time. So if anyone has any questions whatsoever with regard to the testimony you just heard, you are more than welcome to ask those questions. I'll start on the left tonight. Board members, anybody have a question? Now to the right, anybody have a question? Mr. Chief.
We got two documents in the mail. We got this document, which came after this document, which shows the giving of some areas back so that the applicant can plant trees and we don't have these pinch points that have been bothering me since the first meeting. Out of all of the pinch points, they decided that they would give it back.
A question, not a
So
testimony.
I'm asking the applicant, will trees now be planted in those areas, the four areas that they've opened up a little bit bigger to plant? And what about the other area? Well, he doesn't know what the other area is.
One is the multiple question. One of the, go ahead, Mr. Answer the question.
With respect to the areas where the parking spaces were removed from the plan, no new trees are proposed for those areas, but additional shrubs and ground covers are part of the plan.
Anything else, Mr. Chief?
And it wouldn't be for him, it would be for the engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the public, you've heard my instructions. Does any member of the public have a question or questions for the landscape architect based upon the testimony he has just given? I see a hand up over in the far corner. Please come forward, sir. And our legal counsel will give you instructions once you get to the podium.
Good evening, sir. Please state your name and address.
Mark Myers, 19 Howard Drive.
I can know.
Yes. I just have, me here, right? I just have one question. How many trees over 3 years old are going to be removed by this project?
Sir, that's not part of what he just testified to.
I'm just a member of the public.
No, you're not judged. You are an important member of the public. And
Well, then you just
I'm sorry,
testified
sir.
to the
Did you
entire.
hear my instructions at the beginning? You can't talk over someone else. I was explaining to you the procedures, which I did announce and stated very clearly that the only questions you may have asked at this juncture of the process is based upon the testimony he has just given. Do you have any questions based upon the testimony he has just given?
I didn't hear any specific comments about the number of trees, but
That was the subject of many prior testimony by this gentleman and by other witnesses.
so how can I get that answer?
Well, you should have been here to ask the questions at the time the testimony was given.
Okay, realistically, is this a place where the public can go?
Yes.
Someone, where can I go?
You go to the office on the second floor after you call Mr. Senna, 325-4180, to make an appointment to look at the plans. They have been filed 10 days before tonight, and they're available for the public to inspect, so that you will see what it is that was on the plans.
So, okay. But as the chairman of the board, are you, it seems rather this is not really a friendly procedure for the public. I mean, if he could have answered in a quicker moment, then this whole thing could have taken place.
Mr. Moritz, your comment, you're gonna walk away while I'm talking to you, then? You wanted to be friendly?
All right, I'll be friendly.
We have rules and procedures that have to be followed. The fact that you showed up tonight and want to ask a bunch of questions based upon things that have been questioned by many of your neighbors who are sitting here tonight and who have diligently come to virtually every meeting is something that is part and parcel of how we conduct our business. You're more than welcome to ask questions if you come to the meeting.
Okay, I'll come better prepared next.
Thank you, sir. I gave the wrong number, 325-4108, sorry. Any other member of the public with a question regarding the testimony we just received? Mr. Malanga, come on up.
Good evening, Sally Molina, Ridge Road. Mr. Zura, could you put a copy of your plan up on the board?
Has that been marked yet?
We didn't mark it, but Sally, pull the microphone down because she can't hear you.
I'm sorry. Ms. Stiles,
I'm sorry.
turn it up a little. Stop interrupting, please.
Sir.
No, stop interrupting. We're handling our business. I understand your problem with hearing, and Ms. Malanga knows to speak into the microphone.
It has not been marked as identical to what was submitted
I'm sorry, when you say submitted as,
to the board.
and Mr. Zura, could you please read into the record the drawing number with the latest revision date?
Sure.
I thought I heard Mr. Regan say 215, February 15.
I'm right behind you here. So it's called, the sheet is called Student Diagram, the sheet LT 101, and the submission date is 2/15/2019.
That's the revision
The
date.
drawing date, yes.
So it wasn't a revised drawing, it's the issue date. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Malanga.
I have a few questions about some of the markings on the plan. Starting right here, next to the
Ms. Malanga, you're going to get chastised by Ms. Stiles again for not speaking into the microphone.
starting near the AMC, near the AMC Theater. Near the AMC Theater, there's a proposed building I, and there are, all these pink dots here are trees to be removed. My understanding is, based on going to the site, that these trees are fairly substantial trees. And this is, my understanding, this building is phase 3, that it may or may not ever be built. Would you consider not cutting these trees down in the initial phase of the project? They are actually substantial trees, and I believe
Okay,
they're.
I'm sorry, your question is there. Are you able to answer the question, Mr. Zura?
I think I can, sure. As long as they're not conflicting with any of the site improvements, utilities and such, I don't think that they are from this vantage point. I think we could agree to let those trees remain for now.
until the building has to,
Until that phase of building construction is to commence, yes.
There's trees here in the courtyard. This is the first that we're seeing these 4 pink dots here, that you are now planning on cutting trees in the courtyard. How large are those trees?
If you give me a minute, I can pull out my more detailed
And what,
information on that and tell you exactly what.
and why are
no, no,
you?
Mr. Lane, there's a question pending, let me look at this plan and I'll answer the question. And then you can follow up with the second question, which is actually the third question.
So, Mr. Chairperson, how do we have that as part of our plan that they've now agreed to that? Okay.
Ms. Byrne has a list of conditions that have been discussed with the applicant. If the application is approved, it will be part of the conditions that go into the resolution. And what I've actually directed is that going forward, all resolutions containing conditions, the conditions will be printed onto the final plan so that everybody sees them there.
Okay. So we're looking at 4 trees in that courtyard area, marked in pink-red color. Tree number 293 is a pear tree, and it's approximately 10 inches in DBH, diameter breast height. Tree 295 is also a pear tree, that's at about 11 inches in diameter breast height. Tree number 296 is also a pear tree, that's only about 9 inches diameter breast height. And tree 299 is also a pear tree, and that's at about 9.5 inches diameter breast height.
What is the purpose for removing those trees?
The purpose for removing them is to accommodate the improvements in that area that the building architect has testified to.
You state on your tree removal plan that many of the trees sustain trunk damage. I am wondering how you plan to prevent that from happening on the new trees going forward.
I'm sorry, Ms. Moran, that's been discussed on any number of occasions. And you've asked it before, and we're gonna go on to something else. Direct yourself to what's on the plan.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but I will try something else. How will you create crosswalk protection for the trees here on these end aisles? Are you familiar now? People have to exit their cars and walk through the parking lot, past the islands, into this roadway here that is along the curb of the stores. Very often people stand in these islands because they don't know where else to stand, honestly. There's nowhere else to go. So if a car is coming down the aisle and a car is coming this way, the person most likely will stand in that island.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
How will you prevent that and protect your landscaping from being trampled?
I don't feel that I can really answer that based on this plan. This is a tree inventory,
Thank you.
categorizing existing conditions. I think those sort of topics will testify.
Those are operational.
Is this the single raised sidewalk? Oh, here it is. Is this the single raised sidewalk with the trees? Is that why these trees are being removed?
Ms. Malina, would you identify where you pointed to?
I'm pointing to near building G.
And how many trees are you pointing to?
4?
The trees that are diagram are being removed due to a variety of site improvements that are planned. Again, that's been testified to by others.
These two trees here along this slope, this is a very nice slope, and I appreciate that you're going to save these trees on the edge here, but these two trees as well, could they possibly be saved?
If I can step in and get a closer look at the tree number. I believe you're referring to trees 173 and 179. They are shown to be removed on this plan because of the proposed site plan changes, the parking spaces that are going to be there.
3 more minutes.
Okay.
Mr. Lando.
Okay. Mr. Lawyer, when I was asking my questions at a previous hearing, I was reviewing the tree ordinance, and I'm concerned about one aspect of the tree ordinance.
He hasn't testified as to the,
But I was in the process of asking those questions, and I had to step aside so that Mr. Winston could speak that evening. This was, I guess, back in January or December. I just have one question. May I?
Yes.
According to the tree ordinance, 25-20-1.
thank you, Ms. White. Was it a bloodless coup?
Natives are getting restless.
There's the ordinance asks for some specific information, 25-27.7, that the board needs to consider when, certain factors when deciding on an application. And one of them is whether the proposed cutting down or removal would increase the amount of stormwater runoff on other properties. My concern is with the cutting down of 152 trees and then replanting smaller ones. If a 100-year or 500-year storm hits,
But that has nothing to do with this witness. He doesn't, let me finish with
well,
it.
maybe.
He doesn't testify with regard to drainage. The testimony with regard to drainage, as I recall it, is that the drainage from this site goes away from the residences. And you can deal with that with the engineer, or you should have dealt with that with the engineer. This witness has nothing to do with drainage.
Right, I did talk to the engineer about it, I did ask him that when he testified, and he said it just runs off into Executive Drive. However, the tree ordinance, once I examined it, says that this had to be mentioned to the board for
We will certainly consider
consideration.
it. 1 minute.
That's it, my
Thank you.
questions are completed.
Any other member of the public with a question for the witness based upon the testimony tonight? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Zura, Mr. Reardon, and thank you. For those of you who have not been here on a regular basis, we have a 10-minute limit, and the limit of time you have to ask questions. That same 10-minute limit will apply to final statements at the end of the hearing.
Mr. Chairman, Anthony Fuller, our architect, is here to provide testimony with what I'm handing out to you this evening, which is a, yes. I think we can talk each from the bottom. Identify as a clause.
Now, 18, or this is 18?
12, this will be.
812.
Yeah.
That will serve as barriers that will contribute to the overall aesthetic of the plaza. So we have a combination of bollards that also serve as light fixtures. We have planters that are made out of concrete that will stop the vehicle. Those will be planted with annuals and small and tall shrubs. And then we have light poles, which would be fitted with a concrete base, also intended to stop the vehicle. So we kind of have two staggered waves of that, one at the tip of the landscaped area, and then some immediately along the curve. And those features simply alternate to add more diversity to the look of it. But it's quite simple. This was reviewed by the police chief after it was asked for, and we approved this plan.
Let's wait for Mr.
That's all I have.
Anything further, Mr.
No.
The members of the board, again, limited to the testimony we've just heard. I started on the left the last time, I'll start on the right this time. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Chairman, before I ask a question, I sent you an email about this plan. I didn't get a response, but,
Well, that's because we have to do this stuff on the record.
well, that's why I figured you'd say that, so I'll basically say that, plan is fine, except that I wanted just to make some adjustments, and I'm wondering if you can do that. First of all, as an architect, I'm into lining up things. Hopefully you are also. I just redrew in red like I would do in my office when I'm working with a plan of a younger architect or a younger intern, where I think these things should be in terms of in relationship to the buildings. So what I did was I moved the baller to second baller to the right.
From this side?
On the right there.
This one?
That one, I moved, actually, the first one I moved over, I don't even know what size the ballers are because there's no dimension on them. I would assume that they're about 4 feet, 4 or 5 feet in diameter. I don't know, do you know?
Inches or feet?
4 to 5 feet.
No, a bollard is usually.
Not the baller, I'm sorry, the planters.
Okay, yes, the planter. Yes, it is about 48 inches.
It's about 48 inches.
So, Mr. Rubin, you're talking about moving the baller? or-
No, the planter, I'm sorry, I misspoke. I do misspeak from time to time. Just moving it over 4 feet so that it sort of is aligned with where the round part of the building, actually moving to the right, the round part of the building is the straight part of the building, so in that corner. And then taking the second planter and putting it so that it's lined up with the edge of the tangent of the round, whatever that is going to be, which we still don't know what it's going to be, part of the building, and then adding a crosswalk at the depressed curb. There's a depressed curb, which there's no crosswalk. So I was wondering whether this is just showing the bollards and how's it going to relate to, how's it going to be coordinated with the crosswalks and coordinated with the engineering plan. I drew the crosswalk in on my plan.
It's on the plan?
It's not on the plan.
Well, Mr. Greidel is saying it is on the
It's
plan.
on the site, sorry to interrupt, it's on the site plan.
You never an interruption.
This is a,
Here's the problem with that. The problem with that is that you should, and I talked about it last month at the end of the meeting, and you gave me some credit to that. There has to be a coordinated plan between the architect and the engineer. And if you don't have a coordinated plan, something's going to be missed, despite the list of conditions of approval. And this is very important to have, in my opinion, to have these ADA curb cuts, which are extremely important, to line up with the actual crosswalk that is going to be there.
And on the final site plan, those will be shown?
Yeah, they're actually shown on the current site plan as Mr. Greidel pointed out. I don't disagree with Mr. Eben that this plan may not sync up with that plan, and it needs to. We agree to that, the
Okay.
final site plan.
This is not an approved plan, this will not be an approved plan or construction drawing. We will relay those back to the approved, if the application is approved, site plan.
And the
And the bollards will be shown.
Be on the improvement.
If there's an approval, the site plan will depict precisely where the bollards and the planters and the light fixtures will be located. Those are site plan requirements, it will be on the plan.
All right. Also, the planters look to be right on the curb. I just thought maybe they should be a little bit back because snow plowing, if we get any snow anymore, we'll clip those planters and they will be chipped and ruined. And I'd hate to see those beautiful planters chipped and ruined. So just pushing them back about 6 inches might do the job of keeping them from being damaged, but still doing the same thing. I would like, if possible, that the ADA ramp, which is shown all the way on the left, if you go ways you can make a right or a left if you're in a wheelchair and not hit the building. So my suggestion was to, and my plan was to move it so it's centered in the aisleway on the left-hand side of the planter, the big planter in the middle. I don't know whether that's possible, and you can do that, and you can coordinate with the engineering plan. I would be a very happy citizen. That's my question.
So the best way to answer that is, we'll review that. To be candid, the intent was to show something that matched exactly the way the civil layout for the same improvements was currently proposed. When we do pull everything together, we'll make sure that the planters and the crosswalks are well lined up.
Then I had another question, which I don't know whether you can answer the question or not. This is not the only entrance where people will be parking and walking into the plaza. There's one around the side, there's one here, they'll be crossing from the hotel. They'll be coming down the sidewalk, the new sidewalk that's along the left-hand side of the new roadway. Where are there any other protections of police chief? I saw the police chief memo, and you've solved the police chief's problem here, but I don't know whether the police chief is, actually came originally from the council. One of the council people is the one that asked the police chief, and that's how it's all evolved. I'm wondering whether any of the other openings, I mean, if I wanted to run a truck up into the sidewalk, I could do that from the other side. So maybe Ms. Holding can answer the question. I don't know.
Okay, so when we reviewed this with the police chief, I just want to emphasize that he did sign off that we had addressed all of the locations that were concerned to him. Amongst our design team, we discussed that at the existing movie theater entrance between building C and B, it didn't seem that he emphasized that as a point of need for bollards, but we are going to go ahead and include them there because we do believe that is another vulnerable.
Actually, if I may correct, I think actually what we're talking about is you can describe it as a cutout proposed on the new building.
Right.
I just want to have Anthony correct.
Okay. So the point that, or the place that we had discussed was actually the new plaza, which is a 3,000 square foot plaza along building B.
All right, so the ball is there.
Yes.
Similar.
The same solution of alternating light poles, planters.
But not around the corner of the pig.
Correct. That was not an area of concern for the police chief.
And also correct me if I'm incorrect, that there are no improvements proposed over on that
There's
side.
no scope of new work at that area.
Could you better describe that for me, because it's going to be conditioned, I want to know where you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes, there is an area along building B where the new entrance from Prospect Avenue immediately meets the building. That area has been developed with a 3,000 square foot pedestrian plaza, and we will protect that in the same way that we protect our large restaurant plaza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Gonzalez? I'm fine. Mr. Bell?
In regards to the bollards with the lights, will they be sufficient to stop a vehicle?
Yeah, the light fixture really isn't doing the work. It's a sleeved steel post that goes as far into the ground as it sticks out of the ground. That's encased in a concrete caisson, and it's a concrete fill. And then they basically sleeve a conduit through that just to run the light fixture, just to make it look pretty.
Okay, so it will be filled with concrete?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mrs. Simon? Now, Ms. Wells? Professionals, any questions?
One quick question, and maybe it's more operational, but I assume there'll be a way to still get service vehicles into that area, and we maintenance, so maybe some of the bollards are removable, or some other way to
Likely, we would take just one bollard is all it would take to be a removable bollard, and that would allow us to get vehicles to the site.
Mr. Grossman?
I have no questions.
Okay, members of the public, same instructions as before. Your limit is 10 minutes, and your questioning is limited to the testimony of the witness. I see a hand up in the last row. Please come forward. And when you're at the podium, please listen to our attorney.
Hi, name and address, please.
Yes, Kavira Myers, Marion Drive.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, what's my first name?
KHABIRAH, last name MYERS,
And I'm sorry, I missed that.
Marion Drive.
Marion Drive. I'm sorry, can I have your name?
Mr. Kohler.
Mr. Calder, you testified in response to our esteemed board member, Mr. Evan. Even, I'm so sorry. This is my first time hearing it.
First time I ever didn't address his esteem.
You testified in response to Mr. Even's inquiry about the ADA compliance of one of the crosswalks, that you would ensure at some undetermined date that those crosswalks would indeed be ADA compliant. Is that right? That at some future date you would ensure that they would be ADA compliant?
I didn't make any testimony about the ADA compliance, but in the interest of speed, I will say that we are required to make them ADA compliant, yes.
Okay, but if I recall your testimony in response to Mr. Evans' question about whether it's currently, whether your plan for the crosswalks currently comply with the ADA, your statement was that you're not sure at this time, but you plan to make sure that they are at a future date.
Let me explain something.
Is that correct? It is a
Ms.
question.
Myers, yes, oh, it is a question. This gentleman did not prepare the site plan drawing on which the crosswalk appears. However, all applicants are required to have their final plans and their final construction be ADA compliant.
Okay, so my question then is, if it's not currently ADA compliant, why are we even here trying to vote on something that doesn't satisfy the ADA regulations?
Because your conclusion, your premise is incorrect. The applicant has to comply with ADA.
Okay, but my question is in response to the testimony. And I can only go by what the witness is testifying to. If you're the judge, you can't speak on behalf of the witness.
I'm not.
So it sounds to me that you're a partial judge.
Well, I appreciate your negative comment as well. If you had come to more meetings, you would have been able to question the engineer who drew the drawing and to testify as to whether or not the crosswalk as he drew it on his plan is ADA compliant.
Okay, well, it's not a negative comment, it's a factual observation, and I'm not the only one who's making that observation here. This is not a very public-friendly forum. Thank you.
That's another comment. Anybody else from the public want to make a comment or question for the Okay, seeing none, let's bring on your next witness.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further witnesses.
Okay. Are you closing your case?
Yes.
Okay, the applicant is now rested. This is the part of the application where the public is invited to offer comments and testimony. And I will explain that so that there's no confusion. Each individual who wishes to speak is afforded 10 minutes. Each individual who wishes to speak will be sworn under oath and subject to cross-examination by members of the board, by other members of the public, and by the applicant attorney as well. That's it. So let's start with people who would like to make comments or offer. I see that, but I also see our public advocate who's in front of Mr. Grossman. He's not here as a councilman. swear the witness, please.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
But he's offering testimony.
No,
Or ask
I'm making comment.
I think it's advocacy. It's not testimony.
We swear our
It's like an advocate position.
It doesn't, it's an advocate position, and he,
Testimony.
special witness is supposed to be sworn.
That's okay.
Please swear the witness.
Mr. Grossman, do you swear affirm testimony representing this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Grossman.
Thank you. Michael, well, first I want to state that we all want to see this turn out to be a good project. And the public has an overwhelming concern for tree plantings and the size of the islands on which they're planted, because we're concerned about stormwater management. On the downside of, I guess it would be the, on the western side of the project, the slope is substantial. And I understand that the applicant has sought to comply with the 100-year storm standard that is generally accepted. But right now, we're in the, let's put it this way, post-Sandy era. And there are substantial neighborhoods and substantial development on the downside. And for that reason, I would like to see, I agree with the members of the public that we should do everything we can to preserve healthy trees and plant more trees and do everything we can to limit impervious coverage. And since the applicant has chosen to deal with this by laying various types of drainage pipes, I would like to see a more robust plan for stormwater management, because we know the worst case scenario from our own experience, recent experience, is that we could get inundated with a storm such as Sandy, and I want some kind of improvement, or I don't want to use the term overdevelopment, but stormwater management is probably the most important thing in this project from the standpoint of the surrounding neighborhoods on the lower side. And I'm not satisfied that that's been done here, because of the size of the impervious coverage that we're dealing with. And, that's all I have to say.
Just be kind enough, when you say the neighborhoods on the downside, which neighborhoods are you referring to, sir?
Well, all of the development on the westerly side of the project.
Thank you. Don't go ahead. Members of the board, any questions for Mr. Grossman, or to the left first this time?
Yes. Hardly, you know that Mr. Bowman, construction,
Eric Keller.
Eric Keller, who is, he's not here now, but he has been our engineer throughout this whole project. I have great confidence in him. You have been here for many years. He is terrific and smart.
I agree.
Okay.
Harvey, please don't interrupt.
All right, he didn't put somebody. He approved this. I'm not an engineer. I rely, and many of the board members, on his opinion, his firm. And he has approved this. So that's what I want to say.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mrs. Steinhardt?
I would just echo what Ms. Boyce just said, that the board's previous expert found no problem with the drainage plan. I understand the concern.
The question I would ask is, during Sandy, what was the effect on the western side?
Well, understand first that I'm not an engineer, I'm an advocate. And I receive many calls from people who have had flooded basements. So you can take it for what it's worth. I'm not challenging the credentials of Mr. Keller, but what I am saying is that this has to be an overwhelming consideration for the board.
But, okay, I just want to go along that line of reasoning. So we had Sandy. There's now going to be a renovation and a change in the site plan with new stormwater drains. And you're saying that the change is insufficient.
I'm saying that the board should be concerned and look at it very carefully. I can't say that it's insufficient because I'm not qualified. But what I am is an advocate.
So, along those lines, I'm not an expert either. So, just like you. So we rely upon our professionals to say that, to determine from their expertise whether it's sufficient or not. So even as an advocate and anyone saying it's insufficient but not knowing that it is or not, you're saying to us, well, I believe in, I'm putting words in your mouth, but you're saying, well, I don't believe it's sufficient, but you don't have any data to say yes or no. It's saying it's your opinion.
Well, it's true, I don't have any data, but I don't have any authority to go out and hire experts. We really don't have to argue this point. What I'm doing is I'm reflecting the sensitivity of the public and their concern. Now, I recognize Mr. Keller's expertise, and I recognize his conclusions, but all I'm saying is it's better to err on the side of
Caution. Okay, that's the equipment.
Thank you.
Okay. Jason? Was your one? Come back to Mr. Glenn.
I just need to point out that this is an existing site. This is not a new site. This is not a new development, and they are probably going to, as they've said, improve the collection of the water based upon what it's going to put in. So I don't see where your objection lies, to be honest with you.
Okay. He's already said this.
Grossman, when you give off testimony or comment.
This is not testimony.
I'm sorry.
Please stop interrupting.
I corrected myself. I tried to correct myself fast. I'm a little slow today. Comment that you are advocating from people that are out there in the audience, or maybe not even here tonight. That's great. But you have to say, well, so-and-so suggested bioswales or detention basins or whatever, which were all mentioned here during the course of the testimony. Let me finish, please. We all mentioned here during the testimony, but for whatever reason, was not supported by our, not Mr. Heston, here, Mr. Keller or Mr. Greigel, and certainly not supported by the applicant. And it might have been supported by some of the people out here. It might be good, it might not be good. Well, I know it would be good, but it wasn't a final condition of approval, at least not yet. So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, you're advocating, but you have to have a little bit more, you know, either a letter from somebody or some document that says, let's do this, this, and this. That would be a better advocation of what your public wants. That's all. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Rebel? Don't leave yet.
Sorry, I asked you to come back to me. I just note that stormwater runoff is part of the town's master plan, that the town has adopted as a set of values that we focus on when we're talking about development and redevelopment. Are you aware of other aspects of the master plan that you think could be improved upon in this project, or perhaps haven't been sufficiently considered?
Well, there's been testimony about increasing the number of trees, increasing the size of the islands in which they're planted, replacing some of the impervious coverage, pervious coverage. That's the testimony that I recall. Beyond that, as I said, I'm advocating for the public, and this is their concern, and this is their experience.
Mr. Grossman, do you have any specific suggestions to improve the stormwater management plan for this project?
Yes,
What is it?
replace the asphalt with pervious coverage.
And how much will that reduce the runoff?
It would help retain the stormwater on site rather than having it piped away from the site.
Well, if it was pervious, it would go into the ground.
Yes,
And where would it go from there?
it would percolate down.
So groundwater always percolates, is that what you're saying?
Well, I can't say always. If you have if it was totally igneous rocks, it wouldn't percolate. But
See, you don't know.
no,
And are you aware of any municipal, state, county, or federal regulation that is not complied with as far as stormwater management by this application?
no.
Members of the public, does anyone wish to question Mr. Don't leave, Harvey. Your constituency has the ability to question you.
Okay.
Does anybody in the audience wish to question Mr. Grossman on his testimony? I see a hand up on the other side. Welcome back, Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grossman. Lawrence Sotilas, Prospect Avenue and Storage. SVETVILAS. I felt compelled to come up, similar to when you see a cat playing with a mouse. I felt that you're being treated like a little mouse, being asked all these questions. My question is, do you have the public's interests in mind by making these comments and conveying these concerns?
Yes, I do.
And are you being sincere, or are you just throwing ideas and questions and concerns out there?
I'm reflecting the comments that I have received from some of the people in the area.
And you, sir, you've been to many of these meetings, and you're familiar with all the experts and the testimony that have provided testimony, and you also questioned those experts, correct?
Yes.
You've been to the site and you've walked the site, correct?
Yes.
You've been a resident of West Orange, I don't know how long, but I'm assuming it's been for quite some time?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Stephen.
I'd like to answer the one.
Ms. Weiss, I always grant you courtesy.
Thank you. Lauren.
Yes, Ms. Weston.
First name, Lauren Campbell. Okay. We know Harvey for a long time. We know he has good intention. And no one knows that he's not really representing people. My thing that, from a legal standpoint, explaining to him, we are looking to Mr. Bowman's report, is not in any way diminishing Harvey. So I appreciate that you're supporting him. but we know him, we like him, and he's, so, I just needed to.
And I appreciate that, Alex. So I felt that, by asking.
That's okay. We understand, and the questions are over. Alice, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your sincerity, Mr. Stevens. Any other member of the public wish to question Mr. Grossman, not Ms. White, or Alice? Thank you, Mr. Grossman. Now you may resume your seat.
Thank you.
Any other member of the public wish to be heard right now? Mr. Moreno.
I swear. Okay, we're going to swear or testify on the truth,
Yes, I think they have to put it first. Jerry Marino, 10 Belgrade Terrace. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the board tonight.
You have the 10-minute rule.
Yeah, Ms. Kaplan needs to be spoken to. She's going to be talking.
Okay, you'll be giving testimony as well?
Sure, yeah,
Okay,
my name is Lori Kapfer. I'm a 65 Victoria Walker.
Ms. Capper, do you swear on the testimony about these things, you will be truthful, the truth, so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm a little concerned about it.
I need to go back and forth.
It's good, Lori's our tech, when we worked on the drawings and engineering. I'm here tonight as chair of the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. Ms. Kaffner and other members of my board are here tonight to just ask and just to put into record the safety improvements and agreements that Clarion has agreed to do based upon our meeting with them, which I would like to thank them personally that the courtesy and professionalism that Mr. Mike Fowler and Clarion Partners gave us to sit with us and go over this in a professional way. 99% of what we asked, and there's more that we like to ask, they've approved to, they've agreed to. But by law, we know all the agreed to adjustments and improvements need to be on the final plans. And we just want to make sure they're on the final plans. And one thing is I'd like to read into the record a letter from Mr. Fowler, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Can you show it to council?
Yeah, is it this one? No, is this one?
It's the one we sent to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This is pretty long. I mean, I know that he has, okay, but it's just pretty long.
Yeah, he said, I just want to read it into record in this.
Before you read,
How about we just,
Mr. Regan, do you have any objections to the record, to the letter coming into evidence? Okay. Mr. Fowler, would you be so kind as to authenticate the letter? Did you write it?
I see. I don't know what they have.
It's okay.
And we've had more than one correspondence.
I understand.
Shows my email from April 11th, yes, from this morning.
So it's
Yes.
today? Is that the one, Mr. Guarino? So it's 4/11/19, email to Mr. Guarino and Mr. Fowler. And Mr. Guarino, please, don't read it into the record. You're going to consume. What's that? I want to have it marked and placed into evidence.
We're gonna get a copy.
Yes. So what number are we giving to that letter?
14.
No, it's not an applicant,
all right,
so it's a, public. How about public?
all right.
P1. No, we had photographs from Ms. Stiles that were, I think, 1 and 2.
Let me see, we had yours both on
It should be P1. Make it P3, and this will be in evidence, not just for identification, because it's been properly authenticated. There's no objection from council. This doesn't have been easy to be read. Honestly, not.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to read this your record, these are things that, and items that have been agreed to. Thank you. It was the rest of the members of the West Orange Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. After consulting with the applicant for necessary redevelopment, we have the following responses to comments contained in Mr. Mike Miller's email and drawing markups of 4/8/2019 and meeting notes contained in Ms. Katharine's email of 4/8/2019. Marion Drive. We will show the potential future improvements to Marion Drive by the township and others. For our response to the zoning board, the applicant will install a solar-powered, pedestrian-actuated flashing beacon on the shopping center side of the crossing when the improvements are completed on the other side of the crossing by the township or others. We are not adding a crosswalk at this location since there is no receiving ramp or sidewalks on the opposite side. Between Building C and proposed Building I, continuous sidewalk is proposed to connect these buildings so that there is no crossing. Between Building C and B lower level, the grades of Building B prohibit ADA accessibility in this direction. Therefore, no ramps will be constructed, a new crosswalk will be installed and is shown on the plans. Rooney Circle striping, additional striping, or striping changes will be done by the township. Executive Drive, the applicant is not proposing pedestrian improvements at this time. The applicant will revisit when the redevelopment plans for Executive Drive property and lot 40-03 is known. Building B, front building, cutouts, plaza, applicant will install pedestrian protection, i.e. bollards, planters, etc. at the Building B plaza. Turning radius from the main driveway at the T intersection with Building B, the curve radius for the right turn has been reduced as requested, but can still accommodate a West Orange fire truck. Truck route. Applicant will agree to provide additional truck route signs on Prospect Avenue to direct trucks to use Rooney Circle instead of the main driveway. All traffic signage on Prospect Avenue is subject to Essex County approval. Crosswalk at Prospect to Eagle Ridge. There is an existing crosswalk from Eagle Ridge to the shopping center at the traffic light. Applicant will refresh the crosswalk striping subject to Essex County's permission and approval. Crosswalk sidewalks from Cangria Hotel to Essex Green. We believe that Cangria recently completed that work. In any case, we will show in our plans by other. And this is the email from Mr. Fowler.
And just so I may, Mr. Regan, is the applicant accepting all of those as conditions if this application is approved?
Yes.
So, Ms. Byrne, you have them now so that if you're going to be drawing a resolution, they can be made ready.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. There were certain things that called for there are some items that call for the town to pay for things like striping. Is that something that we can bind the town by our accepting?
We can try, but we certainly can't bind the township to spend money as we make it a condition subject to, that condition would have to be, or those conditions would have to be subject to governing body approval for the expenditure.
Is there another question to that? I mean, you know, we're going to do the township, we'll do what the township can do, and then it's just working with
You're not here as
operations.
a councilman, so you can't.
I'm sorry, sir?
You're not here as a councilman, so you cannot bind or speak for the township. Let's not forget that.
The champion.
He's the champion, sure. He's the champion. Any other, are you finished with your testimony?
No, I just want Ms. Kaffner to just point out just some of the changes
Let
that we.
the record reflect, even though I agree with that. Go ahead, any further testimony?
Mr. Catholic, if you want to go explain the changes and the written changes that we'd asked for that Mr., Fowler has.
Is this in addition to what was in the letter?
No, no, it's not. What was in the email that already addresses the changes that we requested. I just have, I guess, one request, and that is that there was an item about sidewalk being provided next to the shop rate. And I believe that the response was that it would be addressed at a later time with Executive Drive. I'm just wondering if that could be noted on the plan.
I don't know.
Am I allowed to make that request or comment at this time?
We don't have Executive Drive before us.
Right, the comment, we requested that there, because ShopRite is part of what's being improved at this point, and knowing that something different will be happening in the future at Executive Drive, that sidewalk be provided to connect Essex Green and ShopRite to Executive Drive. Just a sidewalk so that it's walkable.
So there's a condition that says if in the future Executive Drive is redeveloped, then the sidewalk will be installed by this applicant? Is that what the applicant is agreeing to?
Something that we requested last year. Now we
understand, but you don't know what the plan would be.
But we do want it to be walkable. I know that we
And we understand that. Two of my colleagues just said, theoretically, you could make that a requirement of Executive Drive, not Essex Green, but if the sidewalk is going to be on Essex Green property, then we need to address it to a certain extent right now. Do I have an answer, Mr. Chairman?
I mean, the applicant's not prepared to commit to doing that sidewalk.
Okay. The applicant is not prepared to accept that as a condition. That doesn't mean you're without a remedy. You can deal with it on the Executive Drive.
Mr. Chairman, if I can help. The planning board is currently considering a redevelopment plan for the entire area, including this site and Executive Drive, which has language about pedestrian safety, connections, et cetera, in there. So when a plan comes before the planning board to approve a site plan on Executive Drive or future change to this site, they'll have to be considered, assuming the plan's adopted as is. So it's noted for the record. Unfortunately, it is off-site, it can't be dealt with across the street now, but I can assure you that the planning board is dealing with this document. To the extent it's adopted by the council, there will be regulations.
But it hasn't been adopted yet, so it's not binding on anyone.
Correct.
Are we talking about the new master plan?
No, this is a.
Redevelopment.
Correct, for this.
Let me throw another one. If, as part of the redevelopment of the Executive Drive site, there's a requirement for them to install a sidewalk, where you're applying grant access for the sidewalk to be installed at no cost or expense to the applicant.
Yes.
Okay, so Ms. Byrne, again, if there's an approval, we need to include a requirement for this applicant to grant an easement or other right of the Executive Drive developer or redeveloper to install the sidewalk onto the Essex Green property at no cost to this applicant.
Can you give me that location?
It's the west side of ShopRite.
West side of my parking lot.
Along, it's the ShopRite side of
Okay, Mr. Borino, how are we doing?
We're doing good, sir.
Any further testimony?
No, I just wanted to say that, on behalf of our board, that we just want to thank the developer for the cooperation and their, positive attitude for our request and, giving us a positive view and actually working with our board members, with, Mike, our engineer and everything else, and traffic people. So I just want to know that we found it to be very, very cooperative. We appreciate it. We'd like to get more, but we feel we get this eventually as the mall develops and it evolves, we'll get it.
You think we have one?
I hope so.
Okay. I'm starting on the left this time. Ms. Weiss, any questions for Mr. Guarino?
Thank you.
Mr. Stone, any questions?
No, thank you very much.
Mr. Rivers?
Great job, guys.
I'll let go 1 second. And Mr. Reader?
No questions.
Thank you.
And by the audience.
Any of our professionals have any questions for Mr. Guarino? Mr. Rosman, any questions for Mr.
I have no
Guarino?
questions.
It's testimony. Please, you've got people in the audience who would like to ask questions. The gentleman in the back, far back corner, come on up. And when you get to the podium, pick at the end of our legal counsel, she will give you instructions. Sir.
What's your name and address, please?
My name is Andrew Roberts, you can call me Elijah, and I'm Marion Drive. Just a,
This is
I'm
question
sorry,
of
so this
Mr.
is
Guarino.
questioning of Mr. Guarino.
Mr. Roberts is fine, or Elijah.
That was a great movie.
Sidewalks is an issue here. Now, this lady brought up the question about, sidewalks on executive. The fact of the matter is, West Orange has a problem with sidewalks as a whole, but we're dealing with this shopping center. I work in Manhattan. Each day I walk up Marion Drive, I get to the corner, Rooney and Marion. He's right, there's no sidewalks on our side. That's something else for another meeting. But on the other side, there's no sidewalks either. And pretty much what happens is they clean the snow, they pile the snow up on that area. You have to climb up a pile of snow, walk through the snow, about this deep many times because the trucks pile it up there. And then I'm in the parking lot and I walk through the parking lot to get to Prospect Avenue to take the number 71 bus to get to Manhattan. We need sidewalks all the way around.
So you need to ask him a question.
Yeah, we need sidewalks all the way around the property.
Thank you.
Right, so if you get off of...
Mr. Roberts?
I'm getting to the question, sir. I'm getting to the question.
Ask him a question.
He's coming. He's coming.
I'm
But
sorry.
we're wasting
I
time
am
talking
so
right now.
insistent.
So, all the way around, if you get off the bus, there's no more. I would like to see sidewalks all the way from Prospect Avenue, along the route, along both sides, the LA Fitness Gym, and on the side of the existing shopping center. Because our lives are in danger. I know my neighbor died.
You're testifying,
because of
Mr. Roberts.
Okay, all right, understood.
You're
No problem.
testifying
So
now.
I would like to see sidewalks all around. Is that possible?
May I answer the question?
You're supposed to answer the question. Then we have the
No, I
question.
just sidewalks aren't being requested, and new sidewalks are being down. You're talking about Marion Drive. The sidewalk and road construction for Marion Drive is part of the township's 2019 capital improvement. So your street and sidewalks will be installed between May and July of 2019.
On the Marion Drive.
On Marion Drive.
But once I cross the Marion Drive and cross to...
And we asked for that, but we can only get at a time, but little by little, as they do the rest of the development, then sidewalks will be put in.
The space is there without...
We can only ask so much.
I'm just saying, though, there's space to walk even though there's no sidewalk. On the property side, though, on Essex Green side...
Mr. Roberts, you're going too far. Make
Can
it a
answer that
question.
question. That's their property. We've asked for sidewalks, we've gotten a little more than we hoped for, but we'll ask for more.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the public with a
Nice.
question? Mr. Guarino. Mr. Lyon.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Kevin Malanga, Ridge Road. Mr. Guarino, thank you for the important work that you and your commission have done. These improvements to the site are very significant, very important. I have a question about your testimony concerning the restriping of the crossing from the shopping center across Prospect Avenue to Eagle Ridge. Now, I have no first-hand knowledge, but I have heard that's not a pedestrian-friendly crosswalk. What is the signal control of that crossing for pedestrians.
Mr. Malango couldn't tell you that.
That's under the jurisdiction of the County of Essex and the Essex County Engineer. They control the signal timing and what goes on with that particular traffic signal.
You can find out, Mr. Malango.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time.
Any other member of the public with a question for Mr. Moreno? Mrs. Milano?
Sally Malango Ridge Road. Mr. Guarino, my question is, in terms of sidewalks, how many linear feet of sidewalks did you request, and why were you turned down in your request for sidewalks? Could you state where you asked for sidewalks
Ms.
and why you were
Malango,
turned down?
you can only ask one question.
I may answer, Mr. Chairman?
Please, you're supposed to answer the question.
Mr. Daniel,
Mr. Moreno, microphone.
I should know this by being smart. Mr. Mike Daniel wasn't able to be here tonight. Mike is our traffic expert and pedestrian, he would know this. This information I can pull together and get to you, at a very nice, we've asked for sidewalks. I can't tell you the linear feet. We basically looked at, crosswalks, we looked at pedestrian safety, lighting, we looked for things, more mobile crosswalks, more sidewalks throughout the world. But to give you that, it's all, and you want me to, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, this is everything we've asked for. I wasn't able to hang this up, but this is everything we had asked for. And if you notice where we asked for sidewalks, where we got crosswalks, and it's all up here, but everything is here, and you could look at this if you like. But everything that we've asked for, we've gotten.
In your opinion,
Yes.
no, because you're saying you haven't gotten. In your opinion, what is the one thing you would really like them where would you like them to create a sidewalk? Is it Rooney Circle, what this gentleman was saying? Is like
More sidewalks around Rooney Circle. We'd like to see sidewalks more places. We'd like to see a connection, and it would be the town's responsibility, or the county or state, down on Mount Pleasant Avenue, so people on that area, especially English Town, could get and walk safely up to the development. That's one thing, but it's not Clarion's problem. It's something that we as a township and work with the state to get that finished. That's what we'd like to say.
In your opinion, Clarion is a huge corporation, they want to be a good neighbor. In order to be a good neighbor, do you think they ought to give you more sidewalks?
If you choose to answer.
I can say that they've been very cooperative to us. They've been very cooperative. I'd like to see more, but it'll eventually evolve as you work with them on a professional and courteous level and a productive level. I'm sure as the development evolves, we will get more. As they see what they need to do to make it more pedestrian friendly and make it more of a gathering place, their business is a business model. I'm a retail financial person, so I understand what they're saying. But I believe that if we work with them like we did with them on these safety improvements, we will eventually get there.
What is the basis for your confidence?
I would like to answer that question.
You don't have to answer.
I know I don't, but I'm just saying, I have faith in people in all my positions. And just seeing how they let their engineer work with us and get these things tells me
Ms.
there is
Malay, there's not the history on it.
What is your?
You know what you're doing.
What I'm going to say is, if it's going to be mob rule, then that's why things don't get done. You work with people courteously, you have confidence and faith in the people.
That's personal.
Stop.
That's personal.
It's not personal.
She asked the question, ma'am.
He shouldn't answer that
Mr. Morelli, just like I tell you at a council meeting.
Mr. Moreno, enough.
There we go.
I gave you a choice. That was terrible.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Malenga, one
One
more.
more question. Everyone in this room is aware that someone was killed walking on Rooney Circle. So I would say that that has elevated everybody's attention to this problem. Therefore, we are asking, can you ask Clarion for sidewalks around Rooney Circle? more vigorously.
Well, but then again,
Thank
you can't just say the totality, when you interpret the prosecutor's report hasn't been released yet. So nobody knows, and any death, one death is too many deaths. But we haven't gotten the prosecutor and the police report to say how Mr. Oliphant was killed.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Any other member of the public with a question for Mr. Guarino? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Guarino, for your time tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 9:30 or thereabouts, and historically, this board takes a brief break at 9:30, and we're all invited to use the facilities, get some water, come back here in 10 minutes. 9:38. Part 73 of that act states, you're not getting it? Section 73 of that act states that this board has a total of 120 days to conclude its work on this application. The application was marked complete the first week in October. The 120 days expired the first week in February. We are now 50% longer than allowed by statute. Fortunately, the applicant has consented to extensions, and it was my desire that we conclude this application tonight, so that the applicant is not further delayed. So those of you who don't appreciate the manner in which I run the meeting, I'm not apologizing, I'm explaining that I have an obligation not only to the public, but to the applicant. And we need to draw a balance so that as I invite you to come forward to give your testimony, if you're going to simply approve something that someone else has already said, please don't spend 5 minutes repeating their words. Simply say, I endorse and approve of what Mr. or Ms. So-and-so has said. We will take that under consideration when we make our final decision. Thank you. Now, I'm in a bit of a quandary because we brought Mr. Linson back, and nobody's called him as a witness. I don't want to just have him come up and stand there. I believe it was Ms. Malanga who had some questions for him. Is that correct? What? Ms. Malanga or Ms. Stiles? Ladies, are one of you going to question Mr. Linson, or can I send him home?
Okay, yeah, I have one.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Linson, please come forward and Ms. Burns swear our township forester.
Mr. Lindsay, do you swear affirm the testimony that you give this evening the truth and the truth and the truth?
I do.
And you state your name and position?
John Linson, Township Forester.
Thank you. Sally Malanga, Ridge Road. My question for you, Mr. Linson, have you reviewed the new submission from Clarion on the tree removal plan?
Yes, I have.
Do you have suggestions for the board as to how they can preserve the trees to the greatest extent possible, according to our tree ordinance?
Well, does the plan is so that it comply with the tree ordinance?
The tree removal plan and the tree replacement plan are compliant with the ordinance. And it's unfortunate that healthy trees would need to be removed, but due to the applicant requesting 2 additional buildings and changing traffic patterns, it's necessary to remove healthy trees. The good part about it is that we're getting additional trees that were never on the site before. We're getting trees in parking areas that currently didn't have any shade trees. So there's a balance. Yes, we're losing some significant healthy trees, which is very regrettable. What I would recommend to the board in that regard is that in the resolution, greater maintenance needs to be conducted on the site. We all can see that the trees on the site have deteriorated because of poor maintenance. I'd like to see a tree maintenance plan that is going to make sure that insect and disease problems are addressed promptly, that any dead trees are promptly replaced. We've developed an acquaintance with Langdon Engineering, and I feel confident with their landscape architects. I would like to see it required that Langdon supervises the installation of the new trees and the selection of the trees in the nursery, and supervises the transplanting of the trees. I'm here one day a week. I'm not able to do that. I believe the applicant should be required to provide that oversight. So in the end, I believe that we're getting a plan that is going to be superior to what we have now. And by assuring that these safeguards are put in place in the resolution, I believe within 5 years, we're going to have some pretty healthy looking, sizable trees on the site. Some of the trees that they're putting in are a little larger than normal, and that's commendable. You know, we typically, as a town, we only plant 2 to 2.5 inch caliber trees. Some of the trees on this plan exceed that. They're 3.5 inch. So we're going to miss some of the bigger trees. I mean, I personally saved some of them from the previous applicant. The previous owner wanted to topple a number of trees, and I stopped that a few years ago. So I'm going to regret seeing some of these trees that I have a personal relationship with. But you know, in the end, I believe we're getting a good application and it's compliant with the ordinance. So this is what the board has to weigh out. But I believe it's in the long run, it's for the good.
When you had your meeting with the applicants, there was a row of trees near the curb that they were originally going to preserve. Then they decided that they were going to take those trees out and put a pipeline under there. My understanding was that you were in disagreement with that.
Some of the nicer, healthier trees are in that strip, and you know, it's about 50-50. You know, half the trees really need to be replaced, the other half are healthy. It would have been, and you know, basically, when I first went to the site and looked at the plans, I wasn't aware of the necessity to replace a storm drain that goes underneath those trees. So I was questioning why healthy trees needed to be removed when islands basically were staying the same. The landscape islands were staying the same. So once that was explained to me, we did ask them to consider leaving those trees and moving the storm drain out into the road. But you know, the increased cost was something that you know, they in the end were not in favor of doing. So
Thank you very much, Tom.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Any other members of the public with questions for Mr. Yes, Mr. Mullin. Keep it brief,
Mr. Lindsay, good evening. Earlier there was Kevin Malanga, Ridge Road. Earlier there was a discussion of 2 trees that were being cut down in the vicinity of Building G for parking spaces. You're familiar with that steep slope area. Would you advise not cutting those trees down and not putting parking spaces there?
Well, it appears that the placement of the building encroaching into that embankment is the necessity for the removal of those 2 trees, And there's the traffic, actually, traffic flow with the drive-through, I believe, necessitates so, you know, it would have been ideal if they moved the building further west and not have to remove those 2 trees, in my opinion.
See, I thought Mr. Zura testified that those trees are being cut down solely for parking spaces and not for the placement of the building.
Well,
That's not what Mr. Linton understands. So, he's going to answer the question.
All right. I have no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Linton.
Thank you so much. Anybody else with a question for Mr. Linton? I see a hand up in the back, please come forward. Our legal counsel will instruct you on how to proceed.
Shoma Sinha, SOMA, SINHA, address is Social Court. Social, SICH. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So my question is that, how many trees are being cut down?
Okay, I'm going to refer to the site plan.
125, I think, approximately?
I'm sorry, I'm going to allow him to answer the question, but let me caution you. You're only allowed to ask him questions about what he's testified to this evening. He's already been questioned once about these things. So I'll let him answer your question, but you have to focus your questions on the testimony you just given.
Yeah, I think it's a follow-up of something that you said, so I'm hoping that it is within your...
I said proceed with the question. Mr. Linton, please answer the question.
Okay, I'm referring to this chart that is on LT 101. And basically, at present, there's 341 existing trees on the site. They're proposing to remove 152 trees. 181 trees will remain. And basically, there's a net gain of 42 trees. So when all is said and done, there'll be 383 trees on the site.
Okay, so we're taking 152 trees. We talked about Sandy. We talked about preparing for a 500-year storm. We are seeing the destruction of our planet all around us in, unsustainable climate change. What, in your opinion, as an expert on this, is the message that we are giving to our youth that we are cutting down 152 established mature trees? Nevertheless, how good the plan is.
Ma'am, that wasn't his testimony. A substantial number of those trees, if you look at his prior testimony, are sick, dead and dying. It's not all healthy trees. Some of them are healthy. Some of them need to be replaced. They just need to be replaced. And what you're not taking into consideration is that there is a net gain of 42 more trees on the site than exist today.
I'm not talking about the net gain. I understand your comment about some of the trees dying. I'm not talking about the net gain.
Please use the mic so that everyone can hear.
Sorry, I'm talking about cutting down 152 trees and the message that gives to our, especially young people.
That's not within this witness's field of expertise. He's a forester. I'm very confident in him.
I'm not, questioning his competence.
Do you have any other questions for him?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Anyone else? Ms. Stiles, come on up. Don't forget to use the mic.
I don't need the mic.
His name and address for the record.
Linda Stiles, 19 Jones. In addition to the 152 major trees, it's my understanding that plan also calls for removal of another 42 minor trees. Am I incorrect? So that would be a total of 194.
Let answer the questions.
I know, let me answer. I know.
I might have to call Langdon to help me with that question, but
Well, there's the landscape architect not here. It's my understanding that there's 42 minor trees, 152 major trees, 194 total.
As
Can you point, Mr. Linson, to where you found those numbers?
Somewhere in the tree total.
this is
No, it says minor trees. They make a distinction between major and minor. And I remember asking you, what's a minor tree? What is a minor tree?
that's the same table I was looking at, over here. 152 trees are proposed, 8 trees transplanted, 152 to be removed, 181 to remain.
Somewhere it says major and minor, there's a distinction.
Yeah, I'm not sure where it is, but the difference between a major and a minor tree is basically a major tree is an overstory tree, such as an oak or a maple. The minor trees refer to evergreens or something like a dogwood tree or redbud or chandelier, something that's only going to grow to be maybe 20, 25 feet at maturity. Okay. There we go.
Sir?
There we go. Okay. 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 Yeah, I think, in my memo of March 6th, I mentioned
That's where it is.
152 trees proposed for removal, 100 trees are dead, diseased, or have some form of tree maintenance issue. 152 major trees are proposed for replacement, and 42 minor trees are proposed for replacement. And that's from the plan schedule that would be
And you made
on this.
the distinction.
Yeah, I made the distinction by going into the plan schedule.
Okay. So it is 152 major and 42 minor trees are being removed.
Replaced, 152 replaced.
Replaced.
Major,
One
replaced, 42 minor
at
trees.
a time, please. Continue answering this question.
Any other questions?
Well, what percentage of trees is that? My understanding, there's 341 trees now, and they're removing 194. So what percentage?
They're removing 152, of which 42 are minor.
No, that's not.
100.
Well, the ordinance allows for preserving 30% of the trees on the site. and this
152
applies.
and 42.
Ms. Stiles,
I'm sorry.
he was talking.
Three to one.
What did I not answer?
I haven't gotten a percentage of trees being removed.
Anybody, is there a calculator in the house?
Use your phone.
I don't know what, if we,
I mean, to me, it looks like better than 50%.
well, it's more than 30%, and 30% is what it takes to comply with the ordinance, so.
It's more, so it's in excess of what's permitted.
No, it's less than what's permitted. 70% of the trees would be permitted to be removed as long as we kept 30%. We're keeping more than 30%.
Next question.
You talked about the replacement trees being 3.5 inches. How long will it be before you and I can go to that mall and find a parking place where those trees are going to give us shade? Not in my lifetime, I don't think.
Well, based on the situation with the size of the planting islands, they will never reach their maximum size as they would
That's my next
in a normal woodland setting. I believe within 5 to 10 years that those trees will be at probably very close to what the maximum size they will ever be.
That's my next question.
You have 2 minutes left.
You know I'm on the Environmental Commission.
Yes.
In addition to the open space.
Yes.
we made recommendations through Mike Brick, I believe submitting a plan to, and you were aware that we're looking for bigger islands, not islands with 2 trees. We're just repeating the same process that we have there now, with 2 tree islands. Are you happy with the 2-tree island, or would you prefer that the islands be larger?
Ms. Brown, he already testified that he's not happy with them.
Okay,
He's
well,
already-
I
Go on to
couldn't hear
something,
him.
go on
My
to
hearing
something.
problem.
He testified as to that two months ago.
Well, I'd
And he
like
said
to
he
hear
wants
it
a long
because I
strip.
can hear
No,
it.
you're not going to keep repeating yourself.
Okay, I-
If you have any new questions based upon his testimony tonight, please.
Is there any way that you could recommend that more trees be saved?
There's always a way that more trees can be saved. Please ask him something that
I
is
just asked
practical.
if he could recommend. I mean, you want to tell me which questions I can ask?
Well, I am telling you that these questions are inappropriate. And they went beyond the scope of his direct testimony. So please ask a more direct question.
Asking about the size of the islands, I thought was very,
But he's already testified.
okay, but
And he gave you the answer you wanted.
But I'm supposed to be asking questions about what he gave testimony to. I'd like to hear him say it again. If he's happy with islands with 2
No,
trees.
it's not for you to decide you want to hear it again. It's already been asked and answered. There's a rule that says you can't keep doing that. All good things must come to an end. Ask new questions.
I'm done, I'm done.
Anybody else with questions for Mr. Lynch?
Ridiculous.
Raise your hands over there on the left.
Sunil Balami, 22 Florence Place. Quick question. You mentioned earlier that you had a proposal to save the healthy trees by moving the stone dragons. And you said the economics didn't quite work out, or something to that effect. What were the economics that made it infeasible to do that?
He can't answer the question. It was the developer who made the statement that it was not appropriate for them to do that from an economic standpoint.
But I
He
thought,
didn't create the economics, he was just given the answer.
but I thought you sort of agreed to that line of reasoning, and I want to understand, why did you agree to that?
That's a better question.
I'll just say, my understanding, it was due to the cost, and the applicant weighed that and provided testimony on what the additional cost would be. And it would be a decision of the zoning board whether they felt that cost was justifiable or not, whether they should spend the extra money to save those trees. But that's out of my realm of anything. I would love to see those trees saved. But it's not for me to, it's, the removal of the trees is basically the power of the zoning board. I, as a forester, only enforce the ordinance to the extent that I'm able to. My leash is only so long. The zoning board has the ultimate decision of what trees get removed and what trees get saved.
I understand. But would you be able to share some of the costs that were shared with you so that everybody understands and knows is there some transparency around it?
I could only say what I recollect, and I believe it was 171,000, something in that vicinity, to offset where that storm drain system would have to be changed to.
And by doing that, in your opinion, how many trees would be saved, healthy trees would be saved?
It was only maybe 8 or 10 trees, I believe, in that line. I don't know. Half of the trees on that line are bad already, they're missing. But I mean, I guess we could actually look at the site plan and say, I can't tell you from
You
memory.
already testified to that, John. You said that not all of them were healthy and it was about 8 trees.
Yeah, but fine, I thought I'd get all is
It's not like 20 trees, you know,
Okay.
it's a good handful of trees, you know, less than 10.
And as a professional, is there any chance of these trees being transplanted elsewhere?
Well, we did, I did do a site inspection with the applicant and a landscape architect, and the transplanting of trees is very, very sensitive. Most of these trees are root bound. They're in a restricted root area where basically the curbing has caused those trees to actually be root bound, and some of the roots are actually like girdling and strangling the trees now. So, you know, it's a younger tree, you know, could be moved, because it's all about what percentage of the roots can you move. And, for example, every inch in diameter of a tree, so a root requires 1 foot in the root ball area. So a 2-inch diameter tree requires a 2-foot ball, 3-inch, 3 foot. So, you know, we just, for the trees that are 6, 7, 8 inches in diameter, we just can't get a root ball that big. So we really would be just killing the trees if we tried to move them.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from members of the public for Mr. Linson? I see you, Mr. Scabilas.
Just one.
You want to hold it?
Hi, Mr. Linson. Lawrence Sweatvilas, Prospect Avenue, SVETVILAS. And just one quick question. You mentioned trees that are not viable already that are being removed. How many of the trees, the new trees that are being planted, or those that are being transplanted, are going into similar situations where they may not make it?
Well, potentially, with a tree maintenance plan in place, which I'm hoping that the zoning board will require, those trees are going to have a very good chance of survival, much better than now. I've mentioned snow storage and piling salt-laden snow on these trees.
Mr. Linson, let's cut to the chase as to whether or not they have a better chance of survival than the ones that are dying now.
Yes.
And Mr. Svedvilas, to reassure you, the applicant has already consented to the tree maintenance plan as recommended by Mr. Linson.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Linson? I see a hand in the back. Please come forward.
Name, address, please.
Alana Amaya, 12 Helen Avenue.
Spell both names, please.
Sure, ALANA
And say the address again.
12 Helen Avenue. So in past meetings, we've determined that the percentage of native plants is at about 50%.
When you say native plants, are we saying existing trees or?
No, I'm sorry, for the new plantings, it's at about 50%.
It's approximately correct, yeah.
Okay, so if we were to increase that, in your opinion, could we increase the pollination?
All trees have some ability to be pollinators, but I think if pollination was your goal, you would have more success with understory plants and shrubbery perennials and flower shrubs. That would be the best way to get
And
pollinators.
there's none of those, or minimal?
Well, there are some. The plant schedule is on this page here. Let's see, pull this out. looking at the trees, the honey locust is a great pollinator. The Nisa sylvatica, which is the main, the sour gum, that is a terrific pollinator. If you like Tupelo honey, it's an excellent, and so is greenspire linden is a wonderful pollinator. But looking at some of the ornamental trees, well, we have Kwanzan cherry, we have crabapple, we have redbud. Those are all flowering trees that would be induced.
I'm having deja vu all over again. I remember this
A little bit.
testimony.
Yeah,
So let's go on to something. Ms. Amaya, I'm sorry. The rules are you're supposed to be asking him questions about his direct testimony tonight, not what he spoke about 2 and 3 months ago.
okay.
And I know that these questions, not necessarily by you, I'm not suggesting you ask them, and you may not have been here.
Yeah, well, I was here, I didn't remember
Okay.
if we had talked
Fair
about
comment, but I
pollinating.
do remember the
I don't think we had actually
pollinators.
talked about the pollinating question. Did we? I don't believe we did.
I remember hearing all about the honeysuckle, the Tupelo
Yes, I
honey.
remember going through the list, but I don't remember talking about the pollination.
Well, you just did, so please go on to something else.
Okay, so, is there any way that we could increase the amount of pollinating plants that we have, or do you feel that it's a substantial percentage?
In terms of the trees, we don't want to plant them too close together or they won't really develop crowns, but, so it's usually not a question of more trees is not necessarily the answer, but I think the best way to increase pollination would be using some of the understory shrubs that we could put in between the trees.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawson. Anybody else with questions for Mr. Linson? Seeing none, thank you for your attendance voluntarily tonight, Mr. Linson.
In closing comments, I want to welcome everybody to Arbor Day tomorrow, which is going to be celebrated at Liberty School at 2 p.m.
Thank you for that public service announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, at the suggestion of some of my board members, I'm going to eliminate cross-examination of members of the public by members of the public, so that members of the public, when you come up to testify, you will only be subject to cross-examination of the board and the applicant's attorney. Who would like to testify either for or against the application?